Welcome to the PhoneWord Forum on Wednesday. Let's see, Wednesday, July 29th, 2015. It's 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm sorry I was off there for a moment. My name is Jay Carpenter. I am the moderator of the PhoneWord Forum, and the PhoneWord Forum is held on the last Wednesday of each month at 4 p.m. Eastern. So welcome tuning in. We're having an open session today, and we're going to be talking about general updates in the naming, addressing, and numbering, and specifically we're going to be talking about some updates on what's transpired with the IETF meeting number 93 in Prague last week, and some of the developments there in the modern working group. And we're also going to be talking about some of the developments around decentralized architecture in that working group. And we're also going to be talking about some developments in the realm of security, network security. So just in case you are looking at the PhoneWord forums, this one and past PhoneWord forums, generally, we've had specific topics and speakers in the past, and the intention is to resume that model sometime in the fall of this year. But right now, the PhoneWord Forum is just keeping track of some updates in the general ecosystem and what's taking place in the naming, addressing, and numbering space. So we're having open sessions. These are a little shorter than they've been in the past, but this is actually by design. So I'm going to jump right into it, and for some reason I am a little fat-fingered today on the controls. Sorry about that. So I'm going to share my screen and talk about some of the developments that have occurred since the last PhoneWord Forum. And you can see this is the recordings from the IETF meeting, which is the Internet Engineering Task Force number 93, which occurred in Prague last week. And in particular, there were two, and let me see if I can increase the size of this. So yeah, so you can see this online. It's under ietf93.conf.meetecho.com, and you can go in and watch the various meetings. The ones that are of interest in the naming, addressing, and numbering space is the STIR working group, which occurred on Monday, July the 20th, 2015. You can watch almost the entire meeting if you click on this particular link. And then the other meeting that was of interest was the Modern Working Group on Tuesday, the 21st of July, and you can watch the entire meeting by clicking this link. So the Modern Working Group is an industry consortium that's working on what's next for basically in the realm of telephone numbering, and how are things going to look when everything transitions to an all internet protocol network, and effectively the copper telephone network is retired. Here is a presentation that's about an hour and 46 minutes into the meeting, and this is a presentation by Henning Schulz-Rennie, who is a professor of computer science at Columbia University and also the former chief technology officer at the Federal Communications Commission. And Henning is also and continues to be a consultant with the Federal Communications Commission, And basically, Henning is, I would say, one of the most respected architects and visionaries in this space of how do we transition from the legacy copper telephone network into an all IP architecture. And so Henning presented this sort of summary of where things are at and what the direction might be in the future. But the interesting thing about this is, and this is again about an hour and 46 minutes into the entire meeting, this Paxos for distributed consensus is an architecture, a computer network architecture for distributed consensus. And during Henning's presentation, he talks about the Byzantine generals dilemma in terms of an architecture of trust. He also talks about the issue of Bitcoin being extremely resource intensive for proof of work. But I'm bringing this up during the PhoneWord Forum because I think it indicates that there is an interest and a possible direction in moving towards this distributed consensus model at a minimum, and possibly even stronger than that. So for those of you that might not be familiar with computer architecture, computer network architecture, I also bring up this presentation, which was by Melanie Swan, and it was presented to a group here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm going to bring up, hopefully enlarge the screen a bit. But Melanie Swan is, and I'll show you her book that was recently released by O'Reilly, but she is the author of Blockchain by O'Reilly, which is hints of a new economy and consensus architecture. But in Melanie's presentation, she talks about this Paxos state machine, and that's, I would say, an architecture that is possibly being replaced by the blockchain. And so I'm bringing that up as excuse me, let me make this smaller again. And you can find this by Googling Melanie Swan blockchain consensus protocols. It's on SlideShare, and look through the entire presentation. I think it's a great presentation. But the point is that this distributed consensus issue is being discussed in the modern group. It's also relevant in the blockchain architecture and blockchain technology conversation. And basically, I would say, and here's a copy of, or here's Melanie's book, Blockchain by O'Reilly, and you can take a look at that. I highly recommend the book. But the point is that this distributed consensus model is being discussed within the modern working group, and although it's being discussed as an implementation of Paxos, I assert that there are some powerful and compelling elements to blockchain that could fit better for the decentralized consensus issue, or distributed consensus. So in Melanie's presentation, she talks about Bitcoin and proof of work. That's a very, very resource intensive in a way to approach blockchain. There's also proof of stake, which I think is much more appealing. There's some other initiatives that are underway, such as Stellar and prediction markets and so forth. We did talk about prediction markets in February with Dr. Robin Hanson of George Mason University and Andreas Antonopoulos. So if you're interested in that conversation, I think it was a great conversation. I'd highly recommend it. So the point of all this in terms of the transition from the copper network into an all IP network is that there's a lot of conversation going on about how is that going to happen, what's the architecture going to look like, and what I'm seeing is, more and more is that the blockchain architecture looks very, very appealing in this realm. I don't think anybody has all the details worked out, but how do you combine not only the technology, but also the policy and the business models associated with this? And you've got to have all those three things working together: the technology, the business model, and the policy for this ecosystem to work. And I think that's really the key here. And I continue to believe that blockchain is the architecture that holds the most promise for opening up a new solution for naming, addressing, and numbering that is the gateway to what's next. So that's about all I'm going to say today regarding the naming, addressing, and numbering. There's also in the IETF, there's also a group called STIR, which is about identity management. And then there's yet another group that's being possibly formed called CNET, and that's basically naming or name information transmitted, something akin to caller ID. So that's what's going on in the overall ecosystem. That's what's been taking place since the last PhoneWord forum, and I recommend you take a look at some of the prior PhoneWord forums, and that will kind of get you up to speed on some of these issues if you're interested. Let's shift a little bit to security. And security continues to be a very loud topic. Last week, it was announced that basically researchers had successfully hacked into a Jeep Cherokee, basically taking control of the vehicle. And this is only one of many security breaches, network security breaches, that are being uncovered almost on a daily basis now. And I mean, these things are huge, but this in particular now opens up the security holes into vehicles. So we've talked about in the past, security breaches in the airlines, security breaches in plants. In December, there was a German industrial plant that was hacked into, and basically the equipment was revved up to a point where it basically stopped working. Now we're talking about security breaches in vehicles like the Jeep Cherokee, and I'm not an expert in this area, but I can assure you that this is not something unique or I can say with a high degree of confidence that this is not something that's unique to Jeep Cherokees. So security continues to be a huge issue, and I think a growing issue, and it definitely fits within naming, addressing, and numbering, identity management, and security and communications. And I am convinced that we're going to see more and more of this, and it's going to be a bigger and bigger problem. So next week, there will be DEF CON, which is sort of the annual big hacking event. I would recommend you keep an eye on that for any news announcements that come out of that. And that's pretty much all I wanted to cover today on the PhoneWord forum. I recommend you keep an eye on PhoneWord workshops under the workshops section. Let me refresh this. The next PhoneWord workshops, which is an organization that's an affiliate. Well, it's a parallel organization to PhoneWord, PhoneWord.com and the PhoneWord forum. But on the second and third Wednesdays of the month, there's a workshop. The next one will be August the 12th at 5 p.m. Eastern. And you can go to this page and you can look at some of the information regarding developments on the blockchain here, at least in Arizona, some of the things that we're taking on, and then some of the other technologies that are being explored, and testbed sites like PhoneWord.net, where there's an effort to basically pioneer and prototype some of these approaches to what's next in naming, addressing, and numbering. The other thing, well, along the lines of the blockchain meetups, there will be a blockchain meetup on August the 11th, 2015, which is a Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month. And there we're going to be talking about hackathon tool set in preparation for a day-long blockchain hack attack that will happen on September the 26th at Gangplank Chandler. So those are some of the developments that are happening, and the next PhoneWord forum is going to be an open forum, and it will be on Wednesday, August the 26th, 2015 at 4 p.m. Eastern. So that is what's on tap, and go back to the Hangout. Bear with me. All right. So that's about all there is for today, and I appreciate your interest in watching this. Stay tuned, and I think we've got some very interesting and innovative things that are in the works that we'll be talking about in the upcoming months. So thank you very much, and look forward to your continued interest. Goodbye.